The day everything exploded began with a single metallic clang, the unmistakable sound of my new steel gate sliding shut. It echoed down the quiet cul-de-sac like a warning bell. And maybe, in a way, it was. Because the moment that gate locked, I drew a line in the sand the HOA never expected someone would dare draw. I had no idea it would end with shouting, threats, and an emergency board meeting where one officer nearly fainted. But maybe I should start at the beginning. At the exact moment I looked the HOA president dead in the eye and said the words that made her snap. HOA rules don't apply here. I moved into Brookshire Pines 3 months earlier, lured by the promise of a peaceful community with respectful neighbors. The brochure showed smiling couples walking dogs, kids riding bikes, and charming homes with manicured lawns. What it didn't show was the HOA, the nosy, power-drunk, clipboard-wielding council of neighborhood tyrants. Within the first week, they were already on my doorstep. First, it was your trash can is 2 inches outside the approved zone. Then it was, we notice your car isn't on the approved vehicle color list. And finally, your mailbox font does not match the community aesthetic. They came with forms. They came with fines. They came with the enthusiasm of airport security, discovering a suspicious liquid. I tried to be polite. I really did. But everything changed the day they stepped onto my property, uninvited, and tried to force their way into my backyard for inspection. That was the moment I decided I needed a gate. A tall one, a strong one that said, enter at your own risk. The installation took 3 days. On the 4th, the trouble began. I had just finished my morning coffee when I heard the rumble of tires on gravel. I stepped outside and spotted them. 3 HOA officers marching down the sidewalk like a suburban SWAT team. Leading them was President Marjorie Harville, short, stiff, and always wearing a blazer that looked 2 sizes too tight from the sheer force of her self-importance. Behind her waddled Gerald, the treasurer, whose personal mission appeared to be measuring things with unnecessary precision, and Linda, the secretary, who documented absolutely everything on a neon clipboard that might as well have been a weapon. The trio stopped right in front of my newly installed gate. Marjorie adjusted her sunglasses and pursed her lips so tightly they nearly disappeared. This gate, she announced, pointing like she was accusing it of murder, is not on the list of approved structures. I leaned casually against the porch railing. That's interesting, I said, because it's on my approved list. Marjorie blinked, as if the concept of personal autonomy was a foreign language. We're going to need you to open it, she demanded. We need access to ensure you followed HOA Guideline Section 4, subsection. No, I said simply. Her jaw dropped. The other 2 gasped like I confessed to arson. No, she repeated, as if the word offended her ears. No, I said again, stepping closer. You're not going in my yard. You're not inspecting anything. And the gate stays closed. Gerald squinted at the gate, tape measure already trembling in his hand. Is the height, approved? Linda scribbled vigorously, probably writing something like, homeowner showed signs of hostility, possible menace. Then Marjorie asked a question that sealed her fate. Do you understand that HOA rules apply to all residents of Brookshire Pines? And this was the moment I was waiting for. I held her gaze, let a slow smile stretch across my face, and said, HOA rules don't apply here. For 5 full seconds, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Even the wind seemed confused. Then all hell broke loose. What do you mean they don't apply here? Marjorie sputtered, taking a step forward. You signed the agreement. No, I said calmly. I didn't. She blinked. Everyone signs. I shook my head. Previous owner didn't sign you into the deed. I checked the county records myself. Gerald's tape measure fell to the ground with a sad little clink. That's impossible, he muttered. Linda dropped her clipboard. That can't be right. Oh, it's right, I said. This property is not legally tied to your HOA, which means your rules. I pointed to a fallen clipboard. Don't apply? Marjorie's face turned a shade of red normally reserved for malfunctioning pressure cookers. You have to be mistaken, she snapped. We will not tolerate noncompliance. I crossed my arms. Then I guess you will have to tolerate it. The veins in her forehead pulsed like they were about to blow. "This isn't over," she hissed. "We will get access. And when we do, we will penalize you for violations." She turned on her heel and stormed off, the others scrambling to follow. I stood there for a long moment, watching them retreat. And as I stared at the gate, gleaming in the sunlight, solid and unmoving, I felt something I hadn't felt since moving into that suffocating neighborhood. Relief, victory, but mostly anticipation, because I knew they wouldn't give up. People like Marjorie never do, and that was fine, because I already had a plan. And I wasn't just going to stand my ground. I was going to make them regret ever stepping onto my property. But even I couldn't have predicted how far the HOA would go, how desperate they'd become, or how deep their secrets ran beneath the perfect green lawns and friendly neighborhood smiles. What I could predict was this. They thought they could control me. They had no idea what I was capable of. And as I closed my front door and heard their muffled arguments in the distance, a single question flickered through my mind. How far would they go to force someone into submission, and how far would I go to stop them? Marjorie didn't waste a single day. By the next morning, she was back, this time not with 2 officers, but with 5. They marched down the street like a disorganized army, armed with clipboards, laminated bylaws, and the unmistakable scent of entitlement. I watched from my living room window as they formed a semicircle around my gate, poking, prodding, measuring, looking for any violation they could weaponize. They were desperate. They needed a win, and I was about to make sure they never got one. I stepped outside, coffee mug in hand, back for another inspection of the structure that legally has nothing to do with you. Marjorie whirled around, eyes sharp and wild. "You," she growled, pointing a finger, "are in direct violation of Section 7, subsection." "No," I cut in. "I'm in violation of nothing, except maybe your patience." One of the officers, a tall, nervous guy named Brent, leaned toward Marjorie. President Harville, the county clerk's office confirmed that the deed wasn't." "Silence," she snapped. "I don't care what the county says. This is our community, and our rules apply." I raised an eyebrow. Interesting philosophy. Illegal, but interesting. Her nostrils flared. "Open the gate. Get a warrant." That did it. Her face twisted into a look I'd only ever seen in movies, right before the villain makes a terrible choice that destroys everything. "We'll see about that," she hissed, and the group retreated. But it wasn't over. Not even close. That night, long after the sunset and most of Brookshire Pines went quiet, I spotted movement near the sidewalk. Flashlights bobbing, whispering, metal scraping. I stepped outside and found 3 HOA members crouched near the gate, tools in hand, trying to remove the hinges. They froze when my porch light snapped on. "Working late?" I asked loudly, or breaking and entering. They bolted like teenagers caught sneaking into a movie theater. The next morning, I reviewed my security footage, and that's when everything clicked into place. This wasn't about the gate, or inspections, or aesthetics. They were trying to force me into the HOA because they needed money. And not just a little money, a lot. I spent the next week gathering information. County records, public financial filings, meeting minutes, scan letters the HOA sent to other residents. And the truth was uglier than I imagined. The HOA was drowning. A lawsuit from a former resident. A construction debt from a pool they never finished. A mysteriously empty reserve fund. And the officers? They were hiding it from everyone. Now it made sense. A house not paying dues? A homeowner exempt from their authority? That wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a threat. They needed control over my property to pad their sinking budget. And they'd stop at nothing to get it. Well, if it was a war they wanted, they picked the wrong neighbor. My revenge began with Phase 1, paper cuts. Not literal ones, bureaucratic ones. I filed formal complaints. To the county, to the state HOA oversight board, to the Attorney General's office, to the Sheriff's Department for attempted trespassing and intimidation. All perfectly legal. All supported with time-stamped video. The HOA didn't know yet, but I had put them under 4 separate investigations simultaneously. Phase 2, exposure. I printed copies of their financial reports, highlighted the discrepancies, and delivered them to every mailbox in the community. Within 24 hours, my street transformed from quiet suburbia to a cauldron of scandal. Neighbors stood in groups on front lawns whispering, pointing, clutching papers. Phones rang nonstop. A shouting match erupted at Lot 12, so loud it echoed across the cul-de-sac. By evening, the community Facebook group was on fire. Where's our money? We demand answers. Recall vote now. Marjorie responded with a frantic, rambling post about malicious misinformation. It didn't help. People didn't trust her anymore. Her grip was slipping. But Phase 3? That was the one that broke everything. 3 nights later, I woke to blinding white lights and a crash that rattled my windows. I ran outside to find my gate bent inward. A black SUV smashed directly into it. Standing beside the wreck was none other than Gerald, the treasurer, dazed and mumbling. Marjorie was there too, shouting at him in pure panic. You weren't supposed to hit it. Just push it open. I let out a low whistle. That's a felony, you know. She spun around. This is your fault. My fault you rammed your car into my property. I asked. Bold take. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Someone must have called them, likely one of the neighbors who'd been drawn out by the noise. Marjorie grabbed Gerald's arm. Say it was an accident. Say you lost control. But Gerald, still dizzy, blurted out, You told me to break it down. Silence. Heavy, thick, damning. When the police arrived, I handed them the security footage. Full audio. Perfect clarity. No room for excuses. Marjorie's face turned the color of cold ash. That night, both she and Gerald were taken in for questioning. I didn't sleep. Not because I was worried, because I was waiting for the fallout. And when it arrived, it was glorious. The next morning, the HOA officers held an emergency meeting. Only 3 people showed up. Within 10 minutes, 1 quit. Then another. Then another. By noon, a letter went out announcing the temporary dissolution of the HOA board due to unforeseen legal circumstances. By evening, an updated announcement declared the HOA was being discontinued entirely pending bankruptcy review. And just like that, the dictatorship of Brookshire Pines collapsed. Neighbors approached me one by one over the next few days, not with anger, but with gratitude. Thank you for standing up to them. They bullied us for years. You saved this neighborhood. I wasn't looking for praise. All I wanted was peace. And finally, I had it. But there was one last thing I needed to do. A week later, after the dust settled, I replaced my gate. This time with an even stronger one, reinforced steel, reinforced lock. The kind of gate that didn't just keep people out, it made a statement. I stood back, admired the work, and for the first time since I moved in, felt completely, utterly free. As I turned to go inside, I saw someone standing at the end of the driveway. Linda, the former HOA secretary, clutching her neon clipboard like a security blanket. She approached slowly. I wanted to apologize, she said quietly. I never wanted things to go that far. I studied her for a long moment. She wasn't like the others. She had been a follower, not a leader. And fear made people do strange things. I'm not angry at you, I said. Not anymore. She nodded, relief softening her features. Good, because I think you should know something. Her eyes met mine. They weren't just trying to force you into the HOA. They were trying to use your property as collateral. They planned to take out a loan in the HOA's name and tie your house to it. The words hit me like ice water. I swallowed. They were going to risk my home. Yes, Marjorie thought if she got control of your lot, she could save the HOA. She was desperate. I felt a slow, simmering anger stir inside me, not the explosive kind, but the cold kind. Thank you for telling me, I said. She nodded once, then walked away, her clipboard tapping softly against her leg. The neighborhood is quiet now, peaceful, and every time I hear the solid click of my gate closing, I remember the war that raged behind it, the trespasses, the threats, the secrets, the fall of the tyrants. I won't pretend I didn't enjoy taking them down. I did, But more than that, I enjoy reclaiming something they tried so hard to steal. My freedom, my home, my boundaries. And now, every morning as the sun rises over Brookshire Pines, I ask myself a question, one that still lingers in the back of my mind. If they hadn't pushed me, if they hadn't threatened what was mine, would any of this have happened? The answer? Probably not. But they did, and I finished it. The era of the HOA is over, and the gate stays closed.